Okay. So good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon,
Afternoon,
Doc.
Udo.
Good
So
afternoon.
I have decided to postpone the examination because I was told that there are two students who were given, I know, they were since they participated in the presentation um, for the Mr. and Miss DBREF or and RTRMF. So para fair liwat ng tanan kay bangin mag ano ka mo mag suspect nga may the leakage of the exam. So I have decided to postpone the exam, and also I cannot give the same exam for the two students, and also it is pagan ano luwat nga I'll be making a new set of exams na intended only for the two students. So para fair, I postponed it. And actually, I have also a talk with Dr. Apolinario that pwede nga ni kuno mahimo nga long quiz na la. So with this number of student yung topics, so I have decided that I will discuss um, with regards to I'll be giving two examinations for my topics. So the first one is about the introductory part to include the pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, and the one that I will be lecturing this afternoon, which include now the drug metabolism and drug regulation. And then another set of exam will cover the topics about autonomics. So I will no longer follow the scheduled activities given to us na permanente may the short quizzes. So in akong mga topics, I will only be giving two examinations. One for the introductory, and then the second one is for the autonomics. Okay, but don't you worry, we will schedule it in a way na makaka-prepare pa kamo. Is it okay?
Yes, po, Doc.
Yes po, Doc.
Okay.
Yes, Doc.
Okay, thank you. So to start, we will now deal on drug metabolism. Okay, so everybody will agree that we are constantly exposed to the environment, and with this exposure, we encountered many kinds of substances which may cause us, may injure us, or will cause a disease. Same is in within our body, we are also exposed to byproducts of the different metabolic pathways that we are exposed. So these metabolic products may cause also reactions, and may cause also diseases. So this is the scope of metabolism. Okay, so with regards to drug metabolism, or this is also known as biotransformation, this refers to the metabolic pathways taken by the individual drug molecules. So each imagine yourself even taking your multivitamins. The multivitamins are composed of many molecules, and each of these molecules are separately metabolized. Within also the scope of biotransformation or drug metabolism, we are dealing here with drug interactions, and then also mechanisms that are responsible in regulating the flow of these metabolites through the pathways. So those are the scope of metabolism, and each of these will be discussed later. Okay. When you say biotransformation of drugs, this refers to chemical modification of drugs. Um, the drug that you ingest or that is given to you, it needs first to be modified before it can exert its expected action, except for some drugs in which they are already given to you in its active form. It refers also a mechanism for drug inactivation. So here, after the drug has exerted its mechanism of action to regulate the drug action, it needs also to um, inactivate, meaning it needs also to be eliminated through terminating its drug action. And also, it's during biotransformation that the prodrugs are activated into uh, active drugs. Okay, so this um, illustration will just summarize to us what the general concept about drug metabolism. So basically, the drug that is given to the patient, it would be better to be lipid soluble so that it can act freely, it can penetrate freely into the cells in which the receptors ano to, are located. So mas mauro pa niya, lipid soluble for easy access of the drug to enter into the cell. So with this nature of converting it into a lipid soluble, ang problema na luwat ito niya next will be how to excrete the drug. So the main objective of drug metabolism is how to excrete or eliminate the drug from the body. Basically, this makes the drug that was given to the patient this time more water soluble or more polar. And there are two phases with regards to drug metabolism. In phase one, these include oxidation, hydrolysis, and reduction. This for the purpose of making the drug more polar or more hydrophilic, so that uh, for the drug to enter into phase one, it is converted to a metabolic product which is easy now to be excreted through the organ that is assigned for each elimination. And then the second one is phase two, in which the drug is um, again, after the other processes that had occur is converted to a more polar uh, to a more polar substance, again for purposes of excretion. So please take note again based on what I have discussed to you during the pharmacokinetics of the drug, that this phase 1 and phase 2 does not necessarily require that phase 1 mauuna niya and then followed by phase 2. So pwede din niya that this particular drug will go to phase 2, and then this phase 2 will convert the drug into a metabolite and excreted through the bile or through the urine. Or the drug may, from phase 1, may be converted first may undergo first phase 2 before being excreted into the excretory organ is assigned for that drug. So the requirement na phase 1 mauuna, then phase 2. Pwede phase 2, then phase 1, or there are also some drugs which are not, they don't undergo drug metabolism and they are immediately excreted through the organ, to the uh, involved organ for its excretion. Okay, so again, for phase 1, these are the different reactions that are involved. We have this hydrolysis, then oxidation and reduction reactions. Whereas phase 2 just involve conjugating the drug with these substances, making the drug more water soluble. So by the addition of these substances like glucuronic acid, sulfate, glycine, and then acetyl or methyl, it will convert now the drug into a more polar metabolite. Okay, so again, phase 1 metabolism involves oxidation, reduction, or hydrolysis. So the substrate molecule changes, the polarity increases, and the substrate gains a suitable structure for phase 2 reactions. Again, I just would like to emphasize that the phase 2 may not occur. It depends upon the drug that is involved. Okay, for phase 2, again, it involves the addition of some groups like your glucuronic acid, acetic, glutathione, glycine, sulfate, and methyl groups. So characteristic to these subgroups that are added during the phase 2 metabolism are polar agents. So this makes the product less lipid soluble than the original drug molecule. Okay, I think I have shown this one during my discussion last week. So ang manit akong emphasize na diri tiya requirement that the drug will go first for phase 1 and then phase 2. Dirito niya step by step. So just like, for example, again, the antibiotic gentamicin, it does not undergo the necessary drug metabolism and it is excreted and changed. Then another example is succinylcholine. This is in your autonomics, it only undergoes the phase 1 reaction and then converting it into a metabolite that is readily excreted. Then we have your paracetamol or acetaminophen. So it undergoes the phase 1, then followed by phase 2 before it is excreted through the urine. Then we have also morphine. Please take note that the morphine did not pass through phase 1, but it goes directly to phase 2 before it is excreted. Then we have the drug, the anti-TB drug, isoniazid. So please take note that phase 2, of course, first before phase 1 for the drug to be excreted. So those are just um, some of the drugs that emphasize that it is not a requirement for the drug to follow a specific uh, phase of its metabolism. Okay, so these are some of the examples of enzymes. You are familiar with these in your biochemistry. So those enzymes that are commonly encountered in phase 1 metabolism is of course the cytochrome P 450 system. So we have the cytochrome P450. This is commonly encountered in drug-drug interactions. And I know that some of you here are pharmacy graduates. Okay, so aside from your cytochrome P450 system, we have this flavin containing monooxygenase enzyme, the esterases, the alcohol dehydrogenase, then the aldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme, then your MAO. Under your phase 2 metabolism, these are some of the enzymes involved. You have your UDP-GT, the sulfotransferase enzyme, the N-acetyltransferase enzyme, then we have glutathione S-transferase enzyme, the methyltransferase, and the amino acid conjugation enzymes. So those are just some of the enzymes involved in drug metabolism. So to have an example, you just take note, ayaw ka mong ka-overwhelmed. I just would like to take some examples that are common. So, sino na nakatry pag gamit itong amphetamines? Pwede na nakagamit ng amphetamines. This is your shabu. Okay, please take note that it is in phase 1, it undergoes hydroxylation process. Okay, so and deamination reaction also. Okay, so this is just nice to know, but it would be also nice if you can orient yourselves some of these reactions. But of course, be familiar only. Okay. With regards to phase 2, these are some examples of the drugs, of the reactions, like your glucuronidation process. You have your paracetamol or acetaminophen. Then acetylation, most common is isoniazid. Then glutathione conjugation. This is also involved in paracetamol metabolism, then down the other reactions. Okay, so again, these are just examples. Okay, so the primary organ in our body that is involved in drug metabolism is, of course, the liver. So it is considered to be the primary organ that is involved in drug metabolism. However, there are other sites in which the enzymes that I have mentioned earlier are also concentrated in some organs, like your kidneys, then also in the red blood cells, and as well as the gastrointestinal wall. So during the examination, if you will be asked what is the primary organ for drug metabolism, your answer is liver. However, there are also other parts of your body that may also have functions in drug metabolism because of the enzymes are concentrated in that organ also. So you have your kidneys, your blood, and your gastrointestinal wall. Okay, so what are the determinants of drug metabolism or the transformation rate? So number one is race. Okay, so to cite example of race as being a determinant for drug metabolism is in the drug metabolism of isoniazid. Isoniazid is a primary drug used in the treatment of tuberculosis. I don't know if it was through divine intervention that we are lucky enough na God has provided an enzyme that is responsible in causing acetylation of isoniazid. So Asians, including Filipinos, are called as fast acetylators. So we can easily um, metabolize the anti-TB drug isoniazid. Whereas Caucasians, they are said to be slow acetylators, mga Caucasians. Sadly, bagan issue ko dito na ira kung may dahanira TB. Pero din niya Pilipinas, unless you are proven otherwise, consider each Filipino as a TB patient. Dahil sandi rin ka magkerita kung andayon niya TB-hon basta Pinoy. Okay? Kung Asia, I remember during the Yolanda days and Super Typhoon, we have visitors from the US na attended our morning conference and endorsement on patients. And then it was interesting to know na may usang doktor na American nagwa-wild, and my resident was asked why you did not admit the patient, the TB patient. Hey, for us kung in the US, we have to admit the TB patient. Opo. Sa nagkuhan huna-huna, kung di niya Pilipinas, bisan na itong niya nagsugpa usa ka galon nga dugo, diri patiya iga-admit. Diba? So, dito ira nagwawal na hira kung nakakakita na hirang case ng TB. Din niya Pilipinas, sing nahira na 3 piso la itong TB. Okay? Sige. Another determinants of drug metabolism affecting the by transformation rate is drug-drug interactions. So this is especially true if your patient is having more than one drug. Like for example, may sinisin na nga polypharmacy. Itong imo patient. Like for example, my patients, diabetic patients. May danira in tambal para diabetes. May tambal para hypertension. May tambal para tira para lipids. May danira tambal para ton uric acid. May danira tambal. So practically most of my patients are receiving more than 5 in medications. So it is possible that one drug may have an influence on the biotransformation of another drug. I will discuss it later. Paano niya nagkamayada hiniha drug-drug interactions. Remember, I have mentioned earlier kanina ang cytochrome P450 system. I think the pharmacy students or mga pharmacy graduates can relate on this. Itong cytochrome P450 system. Ay kamo pag binuwa kay I'm also teaching pharmacology in Saints Po before. Okay? Then another determinant is age, of course. If you are this refers to extreme of ages from the very young to the very old patients. So what is the issue in the very young patient? So in the very young patient, there would be an issue of immaturity of organs that are responsible for its transformation of the drug, or aside from immaturity, lacks in the number of enzymes responsible for biotransformation. For the very old na patient, of course, issue di dahira very old number of enzymes na naman because of the effect of aging. So the presence also of comorbidities. Okay, so those are just examples of the effect of age. Then the presence of comorbidities. If you're going to have to compare the function of a healthy liver compared to that of a patient who have already liver cirrhosis, so dakot ng impact, especially if the drug is metabolized primarily by the liver. Waray ibang agian like your kidneys or in your gastrointestinal wall. So, siyempre, compromise iton drug metabolism in a patient having liver cirrhosis. Okay, gender. Ano man itong kuan din itong issue with regards to the factor gender. Okay? So, acceptable naman ito na mas mairurusog iton lalaki kontra babae. Pero yan, na din rin naman kita maaraw kung tinuod nga babae, nga di rin tinuod nga babae. And kung tinuod nga lalaki, nga nitong di rin tinuod nga lalaki. Di ba? May kuan. Pero may dito in terms of iton gender, iton influence with regards to drug metabolism. Okay, so I mentioned earlier the drug-drug interaction as a factor for drug metabolism. So we have the following mechanisms that would explain how the drug influence, one drug had influence in the metabolism of the other drugs. So this might be might be facilitated by enzyme induction, then enzyme inhibition, and the role of inhibitors of the intestinal P-glycoprotein. Okay, so in terms of enzyme induction, so it is the process by which the drug induces or enhances the expression or production of enzymes. Just like this one, this is the drug. It goes inside the cell, the cell. It goes inside the cell and interacts with the intracytoplasmic receptor. So the binding of this drug to this intracytoplasmic receptor, this will facilitate now the entry of the drug into the nucleus. And upon entry into the nucleus, it can directly influence the different processes occurring in the nucleus, like production of new proteins. So one of these proteins produced are enzymes. Okay, so this drug enhances the expression of the enzymes. Okay, example, the concrete example that I can give you again is the cytochrome P450 system. Okay, so what are the uses of enzyme induction? So it could be used in the treatment of congenital non-hemolytic jaundice. So when you say congenital, the cause is unknown. So jaundice can be present because of the deficiency of glucuronidation of bilirubin. So with this, phenobarbital hastens the clearance of jaundice. And then also in the treatment of Cushing's syndrome. So phenytoin, which is an anticonvulsant, reduces the manifestations by increasing the degradation of adrenal steroids produced in excess in cases of Cushing's syndrome. Okay, and then chronic poisoning. So there is faster metabolism accumulated in by the poisonous substance. And also, it is very important to increase the number of enzymes in cases of liver disease to facilitate the metabolism of the drug. Okay. So what are the consequences naman if you induce the production of enzymes? So one is decreased intensity or duration of action of the drugs inactivated during metabolism. Like for example, the woman is taking oral contraceptives. So what, for example, this woman is also having TB and the woman is given rifampicin. Ano't may tatabo? Magbuburod iton woman because of naging ineffective and iya oral contraception because of the effect of drug-drug interaction with the contraceptives and the anti-TB medication. Another consequence is increased intensity of action of the drugs activated by metabolism. Like for example, in acute paracetamol toxicity, damo kita inihi ang guilty iton paracetamol toxicity. Like for example, nag-fever ka, tapos maululan mo mga kalulutan, tapos may dakasipon. Did you know that? Iton anti-TB o iton paracetamol is contained in these preparations of drug. Iton decongestant, may dito paracetamol. Iton pain reliever like your ibuprofen paracetamol combination or your tramadol paracetamol combination, ay ada paracetamol. So nagkakamay-ada kita in overdose or toxicity with paracetamol. Then tolerance due to auto-induction. So sometimes nagkakamay-ada na nagiging less effective na itong drug. Then endogenous substrates are metabolized faster. So those are the consequences that happen during enzyme induction. Okay, this is just an example of the particular type of the member of the cytochrome P450 system that is involved in the drug metabolism. Because this, we are dealing here with a system, itong cytochrome P450. It's a system, meaning it is composed of many enzyme system. Okay. Next, after enzyme induction, another cause of drug interaction is enzyme inhibition. This will just tell us that there are some agents that will cause inhibition of the enzyme that is responsible in degrading or terminating the action of the drug. So when there is termination or when there is inhibition in the enzyme action, so what will happen? There would be now accumulation of the drug in the body. Pag accumulate niya, there is prolonged stay of the drug in the body. And of course, kay prolonged na iya stay body, na po-continue lagi hapon ang iya drug action. So that's simply about enzyme inhibition. Okay, so these are just examples, again, involving the P450 system. Like, for example, taking of cimetidine. This is an H2 blocker for the treatment of like dyspepsia. Okay, it has an effect in the metabolism of paracetamol. Okay, then the last one that is responsible for drug interaction is the presence of inhibitors of drugs that inhibit this intestinal P-glycoprotein. This intestinal P-glycoprotein is very important in expelling the drug from the intestinal mucosa to the lumen of the intestine. So this intestinal P-glycoprotein is responsible in expelling the drug towards to the luminal side of the intestine para for purposes of excretion. So kung may dangani inhibitor of this protein, so what will happen? It will stay in your body. So what are some of examples of intestinal P-glycoprotein inhibitors? So it is named according to generation. So we have the first generation, second generation, and the third generation. You can observe in the third generation, diri pa nga ni begin bubunyagan pa itong specific drug. Diri pa. So may da pang mga coded pa ito, mga meaning kung makita ka mo ini for the non-pharmacy students, makakita nga ni ka mga coded pa ito here. Diri pa it is still an investigational product. Okay, so it's not only the P-glycoprotein is not only limited in the intestinal wall. It's not only limited in the intestinal wall. It can also be located in the blood-brain barrier and also in drug-resistant cancer cells. So these are the two other locations in which the P-glycoprotein are concentrated. Okay? Then we have the so-called toxic metabolism. Diba? Ang purpose naton for the drug to undergo in drug metabolism is to terminate its action and converting it into a polar compound to facilitate the excretion of the drug. Pero may danay tatabo na during drug metabolism, instead nga gin-aadam niya para ma-excrete, nako-convert hiya into a metabolite which can it can nakaka-form what hiya hin toxic na metabolite. So we have the so-called toxic metabolism, or this is also referred to as pro-drug activation. This involved the conversion of some drugs to active products by metabolism. So instead magiging inactive product hiya, because of metabolism, nako-convert pa hiya hamas ko ang active products. So this will result to severe injury if these toxic products are retained in our body. Okay? To cite an example, we have, sharing ko pa, we are, common kita ano yan, may hapon. Okay. Sabihin ko pa, common itong paracetamol toxicity haton or your acetaminophen. Actually, your acetaminophen, there is there is a pathway in our body to convert your acetaminophen to a less toxic compound. It's through type phase 1 and phase 2 metabolism. So duduhat iya phases na gina-undergo with regards to paracetamol or acetaminophen metabolism. However, in toxic doses, you know it already, the maximum dose of paracetamol that you can ingest in one day is only 3 grams. Amo nga pwede tiya intake nga every 4 hours kay 500 preparations. So every 4 hours you can have now maximum dose of 3 grams. So ano't na itabo kung more than 3 grams itaton lang to. So because once the phase 1 and the phase 2 metabolic pathways are na consume na niya, he P450 system ma-come in, specifically 2E1. So once this P450 comes in, the acetaminophen will be converted into a toxic product named NAPQI, or your N-acetyl parabenzophenonimine. So ano't may tatabo? So nagkakamayada toxic metabolites. Pero this NAPQI is acted upon by glutathione in your liver. So this NAPQI acted upon by glutathione is converted to a non-toxic substance. However, sad to note that glutathione is readily the action of glutathione as a reducing agent is short-lived. Diri lang maihiyat iya action. So, ano netabo? You give N-acetylcysteine, which is an antidote for paracetamol toxicity. So, the N-acetyl cysteine will regenerate that glutathione that will render NAPQI non-toxic. So amo itong dinhi. So that is an example of during paracetamol toxicity. Okay. So far, do you have any questions? Amo ladton. Oy, dere pa. Okay, makadto pa kita second na topic. So far, what are questions with regards to drug metabolism before I proceed to the next topic?
Doc, may question po.
Sige.
May question po is, ano po Doc yung mga
Please identify yourself.
I'm Miss Makamay po.
The number one. Sige, Cindy.
Po.
Sige.
What are the drugs po, or what are the characteristics po ng mga drugs na ini-eliminate lang right away without?
Actually, there are many. There are many drugs that are eliminated directly without undergoing the phase 1 and phase 2. But the most common characteristic of these drugs are they are water soluble. Because they are already water soluble, and they get easily excreted out of our body. Nakuha? Ang problema lot niya, iya initial nga pag-act. Kay di ba? Especially if the receptor of that drug is located inside the cell. So, nahirapan niya magsulod sa cell. Pero kay unbilipid na layer. Pero if you can remember during my lecture na may damanduat mga water channels that will facilitate their entry into the cell. Nakuha ato, Dr. Cindy.
Okay po, Doc. Thank you. Kuha po.
So, inibasa ito yung titigam nila. The main purpose of drug metabolism is to make the drug more water soluble so that it could be readily excreted from your body. Kaya di ba? Mas advantageous, initial pala, and lipid soluble, fatty loving na drug kay isip ira access. So amon nila nga mga grupo ang na-undergo phase 1, phase 2 na drug metabolism. Pero sining ko pa naman, there ito problema liwat iba nga drugs kay may daman liwat being water loving na drug kay may daman liwat they're provided with water channels na they can pass through the membrane. Okay na to?
Okay na, Doc. Thanks.
Okay. May pa ibang question? There was a question did you have chat group? Chat. Ni Dane. Ano nimo concern rate of metabolism, Dane?
Wala ko question, Doc. Kanina lahat to na na-mention na mo regarding hain ito factor and gender.
Sige. Ano man timog kuan nito?
Wala ko question, Doc. Na-mention ko lang. Kasi kung na-ask ka kanina, so nag-answer ako.
Mabatong ka ngayon doon.
Sorry.
Kay Pastor iton kuan di maaram na Pastor iton always faster iton metabolism ang mga lalaki kung itbayot ano man.
Parehala, Dok, kay physiologically, male man gihapon hira.
Oh. Hindi. Sige na lang. Sige. Sige. Any other questions? Kaya mo pa ba yung drug development? Reyna? What about the other, number 2 pa niya Cindy?
Dira ko do ka number 1.
Oh, sige, laki na, sarihi ko. Maray na iba nga questions? Uy, congratulations nga na iyo, an RTR number 2, a board exam. Pero number 1, an usah mga number 1, taga CI. Sige. Maray na question, we'll proceed with our lecture. Maray na? Sige, go. Nagahang naman. Okay, so we will now go to drug evaluation and regulation. This is very important para diri left and right lang ang paggamit itong medications. Okay, so these are some of the example of regulatory offices in the different countries. So FDA, USA, United Kingdom, you have your Medical Products Agency. Australia, you have TGA, and then regulating medicines and medical devices sa Sweden. Tapos dito sa Canada, ini nga TPD. Sa Philippines, hain man. Demand. So the counterpart here in the Philippines is the Bureau of Food and Drug Administration. And then we have also from the FDA, Food and Drug Administration in the Philippines. Diba? Makuha din hirayan na an issue about the mga emergency kuanan kanan usehan and vaccines. Okay? So I will just give you itong idea lang itong drug discovery process. Before the drug is released into the market, it takes about years for drug development. Diri la ito harumamay salit na intindi ako hiton mga multinational nga mga companies na may adanira research and development nga part hitira company kontrahan nagpipinangkopyahon na lang na hulat na lahira na mag-expire ang patent ang drug kay para makopya nila. And by the way, there is no such thing as universal patent. Diri kausingon nga this particular drug has been approved in the US nga pwede na hiya gamiton o nga exclusive la ini nga company if magamit na itong drug. No. Kaya pwede to niya kung anon gamiton sa Pilipinas as long makakuha ni Rahin license. Did you understand? So there is no such thing as universal patency. Kung mag-a-apply ka mag-introduce ka ng bagong drug in the market, like in the Philippines, ma-apply ka hakuan FDA para magamit ito sa Pilipinas. Okay? So, generally, there are two in stages of drug development. One is preclinical testing. This is usually done before the drug is introduced to the human subjects. Preclinical testing. So this involves the use of laboratory animals. Okay, so in the preclinical testing, it is simply referred to as animal testing. Here, we are interested of the safety profile of the drug. Safety profile. This include studies involving the acute and subacute toxicities of the drug. And of course, you are also concerned about the therapeutic action and the pharmacokinetics of the drug, the profile of the drug. So, amot imo, primarily, imo number one yung concern is safety. If this is really safe to use. Tapos, second priority na nimo, an iya in mechanism of action, iya therapeutic action. And then, of course, how the laboratory will handle the drug. So, an iya pharmacokinetics. So, generally, in the preclinical testing, chronic toxicity test is not generally required. So, iton course, iton for a drug nga i-out na market. So we have the drug discovery and development, tapos magkakandak ka pre-clinical research, then you go now for the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 nga trial, and then submit the requirements to FDA for review, and then you enter the phase 4 clinical trial, which is your post-marketing surveillance. Okay, so in animal testing, the extent of animal testing required before the human studies begin is a function of amo na ton akong game. Anay ha? Sorry. So itong purpose of animal testing is really to know the proposed use of the drug, and then of course the urgency of the application. Like for example, dito kuan ang kanan COVID vaccine nani. So we have the pandemic. There is an immediate need for the vaccine salit in this I just would like to qualify these things with regards to vaccine production. And that's part of the scope of aton lecture. Waray gin shortcut ng mga kuan ng mga phases and clinical trials na human beings. Ang difference la kay gindudrungan ang phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 na trial. Waray gin shortcut nga masing shorten ta nala ang phase 1, phase 2 waray. Nagdudrungan salit while the vaccine is given to the intended subjects, may strong talaga nga monitoring. So, amiton here. Okay? So, during animal testing, if the intention of the use of the drug is non-systemic use, it mas lesser itiya studies. Kay system local na effect ito. Pero if you are concerned of the use of the drug in the system that is chronically used, then it requires longer and more testing of the drug. Okay. There are also exemptions, like, for example, the anti-cancer drugs and drugs used for the treatment of AIDS, because of the urgent need for new agents, require less evidence of safety than do drugs used in less threatening diseases and or often investigated and approved fast. So because of the need for na may dadayon natin ihatag ka pasyente, mas ano to, there is a need for urgency of the drug. So, ano to, depende itong indication for use. And so, what are some of the animal testing conducted? So, acute toxicity testing. So, this is required for all new drugs. So, this entails the administration of single doses up to the lethal dose in at least 2 species, one rodent and one non-rodent. So here in acute toxicity testing, at least the requirement is the use of 2 species of laboratory animals. Okay, so this is one aspect of acute toxicity testing. So naka-specify good the test animals. Okay, and here what is being emphasized here is the safety of the drug. Okay, so these are the different aims of acute toxicity test evaluations. So you want to define the therapeutic index and the lethal dose 50, then the intrinsic toxicity of the chemical, and then also provide information for the design and dose selection for prolonged studies, and provide the information to the clinician for the prediction, diagnosis, and treatment of acute overdose of the chemicals. So part of here is the already how you will react if there is overdose of the drug in question. And then classification and labeling of chemicals for regulatory purposes. Okay. Aside from acute testing, we have subacute or chronic toxicity testing. So this is required in most agents intended for chronic use. So the duration is proportional to the time proposed for human application. So when you say subacute, so in toxicity studies, kikita ang luwat nimo kung viral what iton indication inihiya for use in the human being, like 2 to 4 weeks in subacute, like for example, antibiotics for the treatment of prostatitis, like your quinolones, the fluoroquinolones. It is indicated in your horizon that we can give the antimicrobial agent for 1 week, 1 month. 1 month. So amo liwat ito imo po ang toxicity studies when initially an fluoroquinolone was investigated. For indication of chronic use, then you need it months to years. So at least using 2 species. Okay, so this is the scope of your subacute toxicity studies. Okay, and nalakita iton. Okay, so There are different types of animal tests. So we have the pharmacologic profile studies. So this refers all the description of all the pharmacologic effects of the drug, uh, or simply the effects of all organ systems. So here, yes, there is a predetermined, contemplated indication of this particular drug. However, you are not only concerned of investigating the particular organ to which this drug will act. Kinahanglan imo mabaruan kung ano gihapon iton iya expected nga effect ha other organ systems aside from the organ of interest. Iton the interest for pharmacologic profile studies. Then we are also into reproductive toxicity testing, how it affects the fertility, then teratogenic effects, as well as mutagenic effects of the drug. So I will discuss more about teratogenicity and mutagenicity. Okay, yeah. Fertility effects. So what are the expected effects in other. So you are not only concerned about the reproductive system, but you can have also other systemic effects observed, like here it focused on the brain. Okay, so with regards to the teratogenic effects, this refers to the capacity of the drug to cause fetal abnormalities when administered to the mother at any stage of pregnancy. This is very important because when you use the drug already in the market, meaning di na real world na paggamit, kinahanglan maarang ka when the drug is still safe to be used. You have first trimester, second trimester, or third trimester, especially in the period of organogenesis. So dapat maarang ka dida kay organogenesis, dida pala itong formation of the different organs. So the placenta does not strictly constitute a barrier and any drug can cross through it. So Pocomylia, I think this is the one victim of Pocomylia because of thalidomide poisoning or toxicity. Then we have mutagenicity or mutagenic effects. This refers to the induction of permanent changes in the information of the genetic material. So there may be mutations now in your DNA. It could be alteration, deletion or addition of bases pairing. Okay, so we have something like this, the Ames test for mutagenicity testing. So ay nala kita ito detailed niya explanation with regards to Ames test. Basta it is used for mutagenicity testing. Okay, so we have this term dominant lethal assay. This indicate the genetic damage has occurred in the form of structural or numerical chromosome aberrations. So this is another test to determine mutagenicity. Okay. Next is carcinogenesis, the ability of the substance to cause cancer formation. Okay, So there might again be problem in the genetic material. So this is also part of the investigation in the preclinical trials. So usually carcinogenicity studies are performed 6 months. And then another, also under carcinogenesis, the chemical structure of the drug indicates the carcinogenic potential of the drug. Like for example, part of the structure of the drug has the benzene ring. And you know it already that benzene, any containing benzene compound is implicated in cancer formation. Then another is the therapeutic class of the drug, which have produced positive carcinogenicity. Like for example, dealing here with anti-diabetic agents for the treatment of diabetes. Some have been found out in studies na can cause pancreatic CA in some of the GLP-1 agonist drugs. Pero it needs further studies before you make a conclusion. Okay, so this is the one I mentioned for the safety of the drug in the use among pregnant women. Kung ano't category niya. Okay. Kaya di rin man ito karag nun nga, and ito, this particular patient should be denied of having the drug bisan niya burod. Of course, the doctor has the discretion to weigh the risk and the benefit that the patient can get from the treatment regimen. Okay, so once the pre-clinical trials have been complete, so the drug now will be applied to clinical trials. When you say clinical trials, this already involve the human subjects. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then approval for use in the general population, and then phase 4 is the post-marketing surveillance. Okay, so these are the requirements. So it must have the approved institutional committees that monitor the ethical aspects and scientific aspects of the proposed test, and must have an approved investigational new drug exemption application. So those are the requirements. Mind you, if you go for research, there's money in research. Yung mga clinical trials. Okay? So the clinical trials are divided into 4 phases. Again, phase 1, 2, and 3. This is to provide information for the new drug application. So NDA is a request for approval of marketing of a new agent for prescription use and includes all the results of the preclinical and clinical testing. Then, once nakapass na yung phase 1, 2, and 3, then ma-apply na FDA for for the drug to be used in the general population, and then at the same time mag-conduct na phase 4 or the post-marketing surveillance. Okay, phase 1, who are the ones involved in phase 1? So ano tong scope? We are, of course, kay tikang pala ni na ang drug is tikang pala pre-clinical trial, meaning using only laboratory animals. So iga-apply na human population. So we are interested in investigating the safety and tolerability profile of the drug, then the pharmacokinetics and the pharmacodynamics, then what else? The development of new and better medicines is very important for public health. Okay, so here in phase 1, we are using normal subjects. Usually, healthy human volunteers nga ano to one ito niya limited number. So what is the purpose of doing your phase 1 clinical trial? You are here to evaluate the dose response relationship. So, and then also the acute effects studied over the broad range of dosages, starting from the one that produces no detectable effect up to the time that there is already minimal toxicity of the drug, minor toxic effect of the drug. So, ang importante dida naman ang pag-titrate and dose applied for the subject. Okay, in clinical phase 2 trial is this time you are now using the subjects who has the disease. The intended or the intended or the patients in which the drug is intended for use. So the pilot study to begin to define the effectiveness and safety of the drugs in patients with the disease. So dinhi pala phase 2, matikang ka pag-start nahan and mga subjects who has the disease. Okay. So here in phase 2, the objectives are to determine the efficacy, the safety issues, the optimum dose of the drug, and then therapeutic dose regimen, the duration of therapy, the frequency of administration, and the therapeutic window. I hope you can still remember the therapeutic window I have mentioned in the introductory part. So that this is your phase 2. So after phase 2, this time it is now the findings in phase 2 is applied to for phase 3. This time you are all primarily concerned on the safety and efficacy. This time we are using now bigger number of subjects who has the disease in which the drug is intended for use. Okay, so daron na this so usually entails multi-center studies. Okay, so again, our concern in phase 3 is efficacy and safety, and phase 2 is safety and dosing. Okay, so many patients are enrolled in phase 3, and then many clinicians also are invited to participate in the study. So usually, in phase 3, this may involve control groups, the use of placebo and positive controls in a double-blind crossover design. Okay, so what are the goals in phase 3? To explore the range of beneficial actions, to compare whether this new drug is better with the old therapies, and also to discover further the toxicities which were not detected in phase 2. So, so the phase 3 trial can be subdivided into 3A and 3B. In 3A, the main purpose is to get data on safety and efficacy. In phase 3B, this is after the new drug application has been submitted, but prior to the approval and launch. So this may supplement or complete the earlier trials or may be directed to phase 4 trials. Okay, so this is in phase 3B clinical trial is also known as label expansion. So, like for example, among for diabetes management. So we have this particular drug intended really for the treatment of diabetes mellitus. But upon observation, this can also be used in the treatment of heart failure. I am specifically referring to the sodium glucose co-transport mechanism in the in the management of uh, diabetes. Okay, so talking about the sodium glucose co-transport inhibitor here, primarily the drug is used for the treatment of diabetes, but it has been found out to be also of interest in the treatment of heart failure. So meaning an application in kuan pa may dapa additional nga pleiotropic effects of the drug. Okay, then the next phase is the phase 4. This time, approved na an application of the drug for kuan na market. So pwede amo na inin EU pinamamalit ha mga drug stores. Diri na stop just because the drug is already available in the market na stop na itong investigation in the safety of the drug. No. Kay may da iton there are some drug reactions which were not reported during the earlier trials. Okay, so the phase 4, this includes studies that occur after the drug has received approval in the US FDA to be marketed. So what is the purpose of phase 4? This is performed to determine the incidence of adverse reactions, determine the long-term effect of the drug, to study also the patient population not previously studied. So may dakuan phase 3 ng clinical trials, may da ibang aton pagtuan limited la iton representation iton, like for example Asians, bisan pati ang multi-center studies kung mostly Europeans ang iya subject. So diri kita makakasiring nga being Filipino para taton pag-respond to the Caucasians or Europeans. So amo to purpose itong phase 4 clinical trial. So ito. So the features of phase 4 studies. So this is already in a real life scenario, in the real world setting. So the inclusion and exclusion criteria are not stringent. So wider na population used. So ongoing technical support of the drug, competitive reason of finding new market for the drug, then interaction with other drug if it is not tested earlier. So this is the one I mentioned nga dili kita maaram nga because of using the drug with other drugs makamay add drug-drug interactions. Then in special population groups such as the pregnant women, kay sometimes in clinical trials ginonote ganito niya pero diri expensive iton kuan atula ito ha preclinical trial. And then of course to know the long-term side effect of the drug. Okay? Hapit na kita mo man. So in summary, amo iton iya the general siring pa in pathway from the preclinical trials down to the use now of the drug in the market. So please take note. Siring ko pa, intinduhan ganyan kay ano mahal itong tambal ng mga multinational and mga drug innovators because it takes years for the approval of that drug. Pero ito ka, investments. Okay, amo lang to. Do you have any questions? Questions? Yung man nagdaugan kuan and our Mr. and Miss.
Po naman.
Ha?
Classmate naman.
Classmate? Oh, ano man tatagan nato ni Ryan extra points. Patas ba ang laban? Kung tagan tahiran extra point? Sino na yung contestant?
Miss Angelica Lisiges po, Doc. Angelica Lisiges and
absent yan na.
Ian Von Ormeneta.
Ang lalaki, hinuman.
Mr. Ormeneta. Mr. RTR.
Oh, ang lalaki ang Mr. RTR. Hain, anin patiya or waray? Ang babae, ang girl,
Lisiges, Doc.
nagigapiraman. May dakuan, actual na face-to-face na presentation? Or virtual na?
FB Live po.
Yun naman, lang nakado dito ang atubangan. I-attorney Sabari. Hindi kayo natawa kong. Hinuman padis ni Kuan. Ormanita? Sino nag-miss RTR man?
Law.
College of Law.
Oh. So ano man, tatagan natin extra point anang daog. Okay ra nagduha para fair. Sige, tagan natin heran 0.5 points. Nagtitinawat iba, nakakakuan. Naggasto to siya na. Okay nga ni kamo ada mag-amot pagtuan. An era pan make-up. An kuan. An talent. Tapos kamo, makusog ka mo lang mag-inanmuan. Susun. Kuni kam plus points do. So, Doktora Sevilla uwi na nasing plus point. Oh, sige, ibanan ta ikaw, ikakatunaton ang contestant. Kansa. Ito yung palikuan. Do you have any questions? Ano man ito sa rabot, Uy, questions. Ini nga lubang lumagbas, Kenneth. Ana, hinot kuan imo parent si Dennis?
Mapayakolop, Doc. Yes,
Oo.
Doc. Engineer Dennis, Doc.
Wow, kinahanglan i-emphasize. Tapos if imo mama Hadi o age, si Catherine, maaming ka daw haak.
Yes, Doc. I know, Doc.
Oh,
Inspire po ako ni Uncle Bennett.
so ano man, I mean, mas stricto ba ya ako akong relative?
Sige la, Doc. Nasunod man ako balaod, Doc.
Balaod. Oy, sige na, question na. What are questions? Bisan lang mausang na question. May nangangaturog na iba. Question. Nadera. Ay, natuhin na doon ako. Natawa lahi, Noel. Hino din it pharmacy. Pharmacy. Wala, damo naman dito na ako nakita. Dito ako nakakakuan, recallan mga kuan. Pharmacy, hinot mga pharmacy.
Chua, Doc.
Chua? Chua.
Yes
Oh,
po,
ang
Doc.
coordinator. Ano?
Opo. Tsaka
Din ka.
panis po.
Ay na? Din ka nagkuan. Ano di mo ngaran? Daflay?
Daflay po, Doc. Daflay.
Daflay.
Opo. Saints ko po.
Change ko. Oh, wari ko man ikaw ada ka under. Ano? Batch ano?
Siedler.
Anong year?
2019.
You know. Last na ako pag-teach, 2013. Ito kuha niya na, student ko pa, si Lopez. Sina questions? Do you have any question? Daflay. Kausan ni
Wala po,
Daflay. Si Daflay, kausan ni Daflay. Tapos kuwan doon ni kausan gap ni Daflu. Corny. Oh, anyway, and what makatawa? Sorry, it was an intellectual joke for intellectual people. So, ano rin makatawa? Sorry na lang. Oh. Uy, pwede nga yan mamati nga waray tao, ti obehas. Christopher, lingkuran la niya ang iyag yung paatay.
Ang nag-CR, sir. Oh, Doc.
Ha? Kaya maaram ka, hinod doon ng siring.
Yes, la, Doc.
Ha? Kaya magsapit la ka mo yan na ano? Nadera. Sina question? Hino pa niyo kausa? Daflay. Daflu.
Panyas po, Doc.
Kanyas.
Panyas.
Sige, kuan. Charmaine. Amago. Do you have any question?
Waray na po, Doc.
Waray na? Napauwat ka la ako. Di rin ka mapakiana kung tinuod anak ng pipinanyakan. Diri. O amo napakiana kaya na diri ka mapagtuod anak nininakan.
Natuod po, Doc.
Sure. Mga buwala doon nakininakan ba yan? Ano man, waray na? Sino pa, diba? Ay, nahibal. Si Bal. Si Bal. Sige na. Artuge.
Present, Doc.
Tambok ka na. Ging close dahil yung camera ka na out ka matambok.
Yun na, wood.
Isa maginano ka pa kay nakuan. Nabudot na tintiyan.
Wayag.
Dok, dire ko na yung matambok, Dok. Balat shuwas na.
Sige, Zoe. Do you have questions? Zoe?
Hello
Zoe.
po, Doc.
Yes. Oh.
No
May dati
question.
questions?
Wala po, Doc.
Sure?
Yes po, Doc.
Ay, natawa man. Naintindihan na? Guti. Or what I good? Kasi do kay nangaturog ako. Oh, Misa, my favorite.
Waray po pa kaya na, Dok.
Ha?
Waray po.
Sure ka? What I good?
Waray, Dok.
As in, what ay pakiana?
Iistigoy, Dok. May pakaya na ito.
Sige. Istigoy. Sige na, kay we still have, kuwan pa man, 16 minutes. Istigoy. Wala man, ikon.
Waray po, Dok. Waray po pakiana.
Waray. Okay. Ano ka ni kuwan? Dr. Istigoy. Taga kuwan, Katarman.
Uncle ko po.
So, lagas na ngayon ako. Ano na to? Okay, bisan nga ni kuwan. Himisa. Classmate ko ng college sa niya mama.
Dire ka pa man lagas, Dok.
Ha?
Lilok yan.
Storya he. Tina, questions, waray? Kuwan. Oh, Ray, Angelo, question.
So,
Tinugablo.
sir.
Mamay.
Pandok, clarify ko lang dokan ko.
Wow, mamay. Napatawag pa ngayon. Sige.
An mga phases ba, trials ba? What do you mean, Dok, na kuan gindudurungan? Like, ano sa nga drug nga gini mo, what do we mean by gindudurungan and phases? Like,
Actually, in a normal nga situation, the phase the clinical trial, the pre-clinical trial, diri madiretso ngadto dayon na clinical trials. So may dayton bagan step by step, like dito ka na clinical trials na involving human subjects. O kundi if there is no need for an immediate or urgent need of the drug, ginpa-follow ko dito yan na phase 1 na anay. And then after ka man ng phase 1, phase 2. After phase 2, phase 3. And then after completion of the phase 3, application for new drug application for FDA. And then after kung i-grant na itong NDA, makadto na kita marketing of the product, kuan ay mapapalit na butika, and at the same time na start na phase 4. So initon ini nga phases, phase 1, 2, and 3, and 4, sometimes this is not being followed if there is a need for an urgent need for the drug to be developed. Pero diri luwat ito karsigno naging show shortcut. At naitatabo, gindududrungan ang kuan. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, gindududrungan ang pagkandak. So that, in waray ginshow shortcut. So, diri karon signo nan original go nga ano nga mahulat anay ang phase 2 before makompleto ang phase 1. So amo ito just like in the kuan yan na iton ang kanang vaccine production. Waray didto gin shortcut. Nag-undergo ang usual nga phases ang vaccine production pero ang naitabula gindudrungan like while separate na kung punta kung waray there is no urgent need for the vaccine makuananay 1 tapos humanon tapos 2 humanon 3 humanon and then application. Pero kung may the urgent need for the drug like kanan COVID, so diri na diri na maghunat na yun. It take years for the drug to be developed. Pero waray gin so shortcut kay gin dududrungan na. Kaya nga each phase may the recording and monitoring. Nakuha to, Ray? Doc, what should happen if ever a drug phase 1 of the phases diri na hiya ipapadayon pag-develop? Good question, Dr. Cindy. Actually, ito nahitatabo ito like for example, phase 1, may nakita nga kuan. There are two situations nga mahitatabo. One is to stop the kuan talaga. Like for example, may daman ito niya mga expected na nga effect kay nakita naman pre-clinical trials. Tapos first pa man niya nga giga-apply human beings tapos dito na yung record niya dambuan mortalities, damuan kuan, nagamayada mga multi-organ failures. So ang tendency ito niya gini-stop premature termination of drug development. Just like one drug na akon nasalihan being a clinical trialist. So gini-stop hiya. Number 2 nga pwede mahitabo is ipabadayon lagi hapon ang investigation para makumplito la ang kuan. Pero at the same time gin-review maupay ang kanan pre-clinical nga data. Kay usahay may daman nito gihapon politics. Paunahay man ito niya kung paroton kuan itong politics itong paunahay itong kung hinot mauna pag-market itong drug. Pero usually kung the outcome is very good, favorable, ini-stop ito niya, itong drug development. So, nangangat tulad ito niya. Pero, hindi siya totally nga gin-iiwan. Itiba ito, gin-studyhan pa ito niya, like for example, modifying the molecule, itiya formulation, or how it is prepared, kay para makuan na bagan refined na hiya when it is already applied at clinical trials. So as siya doc nga under normal circumstances ginuhuman ana itong previous phase before nag-proceed. Yes, Dr. Porillo. Kung waray good ito lang nga pagpinanhimula kuan waray good urgent need gin fa-follow good ito niya step by step. Tapos bisan pati nahuman ang clinical trial 3. Nahuman na good nga tanan, nakaandam na nga tanan and kuan. And data nga safety niya, effective ito niya, maupay niya efficacy. Pero during clinical trial and post-marketing surveillance, nagkamay-ada damo nga report in drug reactions, may tendency gihapon itiya i-pull out from the market. Like for example, there is one antibiotic, trovofloxacin. The trovofloxacin was launched during my residency years in Cebu. Akong pag-residente, I was lucky enough to attend the launching. Tapos all praises were given to this drug. Kay bagang nanggudihin miracle drug kay nga tanan nga infections na ako kan adto niya na address niya na kuan bisan ang mga kuan high tech enduro nga mga infections, especially abdominal area. So kuan good, saludo kami. But then the drug was pulled out in market because during the post-marketing surveillance, there were more patients na nag-develop in hepatic failure. So anytime pwede i-withdraw itong drug kung may kuan sufficient data nga nakaka-prove nga iton with regards to efficacy and safety iton drug. Hello, Doc. What will happen to the participants who joined in phase 1 if the drug caused bad side effects? Thank you for Dr. Hamora. Okay. Actually, before one is allowed to enter the clinical trial, may dayto niya kuan in consent nga ginpipirmahan. Ikaw nga gusto mag-join iton you are kuan good in your own decision. So imugod babasahan ka good itong consent form nga anything kuan amo, these are the expected nga mga nahitabo didto kuan pre-clinical trials during using only laboratory animals. May damon namatay ininhiya na kamayada, may dana nag-develop in liver failure, na may dana nagkamayada renal failure. So naka-state ito consent form. Tapos ikaw iton ma-decide whether kuang kalagihapon ma-continue or not iton study. What for example man nahitabo nga kuan inin sa bakula severe na adverse effect to the extent na nakamayada ka mga kuan mga adverse reactions, the company will be responsible to you. Pero huna-huna naghatag ka your consent freely. So susuportahan ka gihapon iton company involved, pero tuwa din diri good kuan nga pagbuling nga ngadtot imo ka kuan kay in the first place nagpirma ka nga daan consent. Did I answer your question, Dr. Amora? Pero puro man lang kamukuan, sekretula. Direct message. Nakuha na to? Na klaro? Actually, maupay. Ano to, send ko pa kanina. There's money in research. Ako, I have the chance to be part of the clinical trial in one as a principal investigator of one drug for the diabetes. Right now, it's commercially available as Georgians, empagliflozin. So I handle 2 clinical trials. Tapos, during my fellowship training, I was the sub-investigator of Dr. Panelo. You have also the chance to travel abroad. Ito niya kay. Usually, itong mga meeting ito, abroad. Pero pag doktor, ane ka mo. Okay? Other questions? Dr. Dafulay. Question. Okay la ba ito, Doc, na isabay or idungan itong pag-take medicine after okay, idungan itong pag-take medicine alternative treatment, like example, taking diuretic drugs at the same time nagtitake liwathin sambong na sugad, Doc, in instances. Ako, I don't, actually, I direct ito nangangaway. Labi na akon, most of my patients are diabetic patients. They are always exposed to people who are doing businesses nga pag pinantindahin mga food supplements na kuan. Kaya ako, I'm not against with that. Basta ginsisend ko na itong pasyente na prioritize muna tinuod na tambal. Kung may ka pa extra nga budget, ikaw na bahala. But then you should know it nga label pala nakabutan na nga no approved therapeutic claim. Meaning, the company itself is claiming nga waray iton aprobado nga aksyon. So, kung magkamay-ad ka man problema later, you develop adverse reactions against that food supplement, diri ka makakakiha ito nag-market ito nga food supplement. Why? Because before ka mag-take ito, you are already warned na there is no therapeutic claim na tinuod. Did you understand? Uy, pare ko ka storya.
Yes, Doc. Thank you po.
Oo, kay kuan, daan ka nang gin warningan na ininiya, diri niya tambal, kuanin. Tapos you still continue taking that kung mga mahal pagod ito ng mga food supplements. O kung mag-develop kahin renal failure because of taking that one,